Good day, everyone. I'm Mr. Gosen here, and today we're going to talk about uh, our final topic in General Biology 1, which is photosynthesis and respiration. So, before that, I want you to know what our objectives for today's lesson. So, first objective is students will understand the two fundamental cellular processes, cellular respiration and photosynthesis, and how they cycle carbon through ecosystem to meet the energy and need of all organisms. Second objective, students will be able to describe the reactions of both light-dependent and the light-independent photosynthesis and will explain the importance of ATP as an energy-carrying molecule. So as we know, photosynthesis is the process in which plants make their own food, right? While it has its counterpart, which is cellular respiration, and we're going to talk about how do these two cellular process interact with one another and how they are both important to our ecosystem. Okay, so the process in photosynthesis is, or the formula rather, is we take 6 carbon dioxide and we combine it into to 6 water molecules, and from that we can make C6H12O6 plus 6O2, meaning the C6H12O6 is also known as the glucose. And in this process in photosynthesis, they also produce or release rather 6 oxygen molecules. So that's why this process is very important in our ecosystem, because as we, for example, humans, we need oxygen in order to survive. So what really happens here in photosynthesis is, so photosynthesis has two parts which I labeled as photo and synthesis. So photo, it is the part which is more focused on the light aspects, and synthesis, which is the Calvin cycle, is more on the not on the light aspect. In they are more focused on making the glucose itself or the food of the plant. So photosynthesis happens in the chlorophyll. Okay, so inside the chlorophyll we have the thylakoid, in which the photosynthesis happens, and a stack of thylakoid is called as granum. And we have also a part here in the chlorophyll, which the yellow part, which is called the stroma. This is where the cellular respiration happens. So here's how do photosynthesis works. So the plant takes in water and also sunlight, and in this process they release oxygen because they don't need it on that first process. And from that process, by taking in water and light, they create ATP and NADPH. So actually they store the energy from the light and turn it into an ATP. So the next one, after this, after they make ATP and NADPH, they went to the process called the Calvin cycle. So Calvin cycle actually takes place in the stroma, as you can see the liquid part there. So here in Calvin cycle, they use the ATP and NADPH, plus they also take in carbon dioxide. As I said, in photosynthesis, what you need is sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is used in the Calvin cycle, and once all of these are combined and synthesized, they use it to make sugar, which is C6H12O6. Okay, now so we're going now in depth and how do really those photosynthesis work. So first, let's go to the photo aspect or the light reaction. As you can see, it is very complicated. So I will try to make it simple as I can for you guys. So here, as I said, first is we need water. Okay, plants will take in water, then through hydrolysis it will be break down. So the oxygen will be released. So that's why plants produce oxygen that we breathe in order to survive. And what the plant needs from the water is the electrons. And since hydrogen become a single molecule, it it becomes a only a single proton, since as we know hydrogen has only one atomic number, atomic weight. So here, in what happens here is the electron will pass through the electron transport chain from the thylakoid, and here the chlorophyll, as you can see here, the green part will absorb light in here. Okay, so as the electron moves along to the thylakoid, it will turn eventually into NADPH. And now what happens here is, as light is being absorbed by the chlorophyll itself, it creates a pump in which hydrogen proton is being pumped inside the cellular membrane in order for it to be more positive charge inside the membrane. So since hydrogen protons or molecules has nowhere to go, since they are being pumping out in these portions, now they will be going to the ATP synthase, in which eventually will be turned into ATP. So we have ADP, and we have the energy, and will turn into an ATP. So in this process, in the light process, as you can see again, water will be break down into two. So oxygen will be released and hydrogen, and it will go to the electron transport chain and will eventually turn into an NADPH. And then light will go to the chlorophyll, which will help up in the process of pumping in hydrogen protons inside the membrane, and those hydrogen protons will be going into the ATP synthase and will be turned into ATP. So in this process, we have harness the energy into NADPH and ATP. So the next part in the photosynthesis is the Calvin cycle. Okay, so here in Calvin cycle, it is a very long process. So I don't recommend to take in depth in here on what is happening, but to summarize this, the important aspect here is we turn carbon dioxide, which is taken in by the plants, and we're gonna use ATP and NADPH to turn the carbon dioxide into sugar, which is what the plant needs in order to survive, because essentially it is the food of the plant. So that's pretty much how do photosynthesis work. So now let's go to the next one, which is cellular respiration. Okay, so in cellular respiration, it is a very long process. So it involves three notable processes, which is glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain. So in here, in cellular respiration, what happens here first in glycolysis, so I'm not gonna talk about this very long process. So let's go to the important part, in which in glycolysis, it is the process in which the glucose is turned into pyruvate. Okay, so take note that glucose, which is the sugar in the plant, is 6 carbons, and it is turned into 3 carbon pyruvate. And also remember that pyruvate that is produced in glycolysis is 2, so meaning 2 pyruvates. So meaning those 6 carbon turns into 3 carbons in the form of pyruvate. So what happens here is the next step in glycolysis is Krebs cycle. So those pyruvate will enter the Krebs cycle. So what happens here in the Krebs cycle is those 2 pyruvates will be turned into carbon dioxide and released into the air. And through that process, what important in Krebs cycle is it is the process of storing energy on those molecular components. So from here, pyruvate turns into CO2, and also in this process, in this Krebs cycle, it also turns and also produce NADH and FADH2. So the importance of NADH and FADH2 is this is where the energy is being stored, and eventually these components will go to the next step, which which is the electron transport chain. Okay, so last but not the least is the electron transport chain. So here in electron transport chain, the NADH and FADH from the Krebs cycle, since it stores energy, so the electrons from these two components will undergo the electron transport chain, in which will help the channels pump hydrogen protons inside the cellular membrane. So what happens here is, just like in photosynthesis, these hydrogen protons, since they're nowhere to go, they will go to the ATP synthase, and eventually those hydrogen protons will be turned into an ATP, or the energy. But as you can see, what now happens to the electrons that went to the electron transport chain? So those electrons will eventually go to oxygen, and it will combine together and turn into an H2O, or water. So that is the end of the electron transport chain, or the cellular respiration. The final product here is water and ATP, which is the energy that we use today. If you're thinking, if you're moving, those energy we made from cellular respiration and also by the plants is in the ATP. So that's how cellular respiration works. So what is the relation? So finally, what is the relation between photosynthesis and cellular respiration? Well, um, photosynthesis, the product of photosynthesis is being used in cellular respiration, and also the products in cellular respiration is being used by the photosynthesis. So it's like also a cycle in life in which helps us survive for a long time. For example, plants gives up oxygen in order for us to breathe, and also we humans and other animals breathe up carbon dioxide, in which the plant needs in order to survive. So that is the relationship of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. As you can see in their chemical formula, it's almost the opposite of one another. Okay, so that's it for today, for today's lesson about cellular respiration and photosynthesis. So I hope you learn. And for your activity, I just want you to make a Venn diagram about photosynthesis and respiration. So, just like any Venn diagram, just point out some similarities and differences between them if you really understand the lesson. And I want you to make an essay about the importance of photosynthesis and cellular respiration in our environment. So that's it. And for the DLP, I have put there a 5-item quiz, and I want you to submit all of this to my social media account, FB or email. So if you have any more questions, just direct message me or PM me. And that's all for today. So I hope you learn, and I hope you have a good day. So that's all. Thank you. Goodbye.